OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
And a very good morning to you. Welcome along this Tuesday morning to OTB AM. We're here with you every morning from 7:30 until 9:30. Michael Quinlivan's with us this morning. How are you?
Not too bad, Jerry. Yourself?
You're replacing Eoin, who's been busy putting the South African rugby fraternity to the sword. We're going to hear from him a little bit later on.
Yep.
He's asking about the big stories.
Big boots to fill.
Yeah. What did you make of the game?
Unbelievable first half. I think that's well documented at this stage. Like the level of attack and play out of the two of them, just the ferocity of what was going on the field was really, really unbelievable to watch. And then just in the second half, you just saw Dublin's know-how win through. There was probably the same level of chances on each side, and it's just down the stretch they're just so accustomed to winning those games that I think that's what shone through in the end.
So you've got really good quality forwards in Kerry, not able to take advantage of the chances they're creating, even though we've seen them do it in the first half. Why does that happen to a team? I
think Dublin readjusted in the second half. I think maybe with about 20 minutes ago you saw a few Kerry attacks where they really put pressure on Clifford and Gainey after the problems they'd caused them in the first half, and they'd kind of trusted themselves to get across to anyone else who was going to take a shot. And what you found was with the Kerry forward line, it wasn't those two who were taking most of the shots. It was some of the other guys.
Yeah.
And the accuracy that they had shown in the first half, Dublin had kind of said, right, I think we're going to just look after these two and it might be enough. And they were right ultimately in the end.
So anybody else is allowed to shoot?
Well, yeah, I think you see Clifford and Gainey probably had the capability to kick another 4 points if you gave them that room again.
Yeah.
So they're trusting that the rest of the guys maybe might only kick two.
Gainey kicked that point from the right-hand side,
yeah,
that he kicks quite a lot, that you're kind of going, you're not supposed to kick these points. Yeah. They're not supposed to go over the middle.
No.
They're supposed to kind of squeak in, and everybody goes, yeah, you got away with one there. But he was like, and that was, Davy Byrne was the closest to him.
Yeah.
But
after that, they really condensed the middle though, because I think Kerry had been they'd carry it in, and then Clifford's movement was brilliant, so he'd get just a half a yard, and then he's just so accurate and he's kicking it straight over. Whereas Dublin were getting 2 and 3 men around that ball and putting them under serious pressure, and that was why I think they started to shut them down, maybe with about 15 or 20 to go.
Okay, so that's interesting. It's not just a tactical thing. It's not just a fatigue thing or Dublin having more street smarts. It's actually Dublin dealt with the issues that Kerry had, and it's that separates them.
Yeah, I think they're so good as well at readjusting at half time in games, sorting out some issues that they have and then pushing on again. I think probably the goal chance will be something that everyone looks at, and it's something I suppose we had a chat about here just a few minutes ago. But Johnny Cooper's role in the goal.
Explain that to us.
Because a lot of people see it as Stephen O'Brien, he should have passed it, because you see a still frame of a picture right as he's about to kick the ball where Cooper's on the line, Gainey is free across the box. But what you don't see up until that point is as Stephen O'Brien breaks the last challenge of Kieran Kilkenny, and he's going in on the goal, most defenders in that situation will come across and they'll trust that maybe the goalie will get across to the second man, and what you see a lot of the time is they end up in no man's land. It's a hand pass across the goal, and then the forward is palming it over the keeper or just putting it past the keeper as he's diving. Whereas Cooper does the opposite. He actually he makes a movement to go to him, and then he says, no, I'm actually going to trust my keeper here. I'm going to trust Stephen Cluxton that he's going to make a save, or he's going to narrow the angle enough. And right at the last minute, you see that one of the defenders makes a dart for Gainey, and Cooper goes to the line, just in case it does get through Stephen Cluxton. He's actually there. Like in the first game you saw with Gainey's shot where James McCarthy is on the bottom post. It's just that attention to detail. Like most other defenders, I think, in that situation would come across.
Yeah.
It's the natural instinct. You go to the ball and try and cut off the ball carrier, whereas he had enough belief in Stephen Cluxton. He's like, look, he's going to make the save, and it's better for our team if I just sit off and make sure that they don't get an easy chance of a hand pass goal.
Tommy was making the point yesterday that from the finishing perspective, you kind of need to sell the pass to Cluxton. You need to give give Gainey the eyes if you're O'Brien and go, yeah, you're definitely getting it, and then slip it in.
Yeah, it's all split second stuff though. I think maybe O'Brien might have been surprised by the fact that Cooper didn't come across.
Yeah.
Because I know in that situation, if I was running in on the goal, what I want is to hand pass the ball across the goal.
Yeah.
You don't.
Somehow I believe that what you want to do is to roof it though. That's like
no. I think
come on, your striker's instinct takes over.
It depends now. If you're 10 points up, you're having a go at the goal. But I mean, if you're really looking for it, it's the most efficient way to get it into the net. So you kind of have to go with it.
And when it doesn't happen, what are you thinking?
I think that goal, and then there was probably another, definitely 2 or 3 points which slid off the left-hand post.
Yeah.
And it just drains the confidence. And Dublin just, the problem being that we talked about Dublin's know-how, like you have that shot and it slides off left and you know you're not getting the ball back for another 2 minutes.
Yeah. And
it's another 2 minutes off the clock. And everyone, you could sense that everyone started to realise that coming into it. I thought, for 3/4 of the 2 games, Kerry matched Dublin, but just, again, Dublin, just their know-how is just on another level.
They sucked the life out of them with that. If you were in that situation and the pass isn't on, are you trying to slide it under? Are you trying to pass it into the far post? What do you...
I don't know. I think maybe step around, so step on the left, go in onto your right leg, but that you need to, I think for that to happen, you have to know that that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do that right at the last minute when you don't know.
And especially when you're actually half forward, so these chances are very rare. Normally you're getting the ball bursting on and hitting it.
Yeah, and it's a very, very difficult shot for Stephen O'Brien. I mean, he's coming in at an angle. Cluxton has narrowed it significantly enough. He can try to go under him, which is what Gainey did in the drawn game. It did it very well. Cluxton came out, made himself big, and Gainey just slipped it under his legs.
Yeah.
But McCarthy is there. But if he probably does that, I think Cooper probably gets across and clears it off the line anyway.
Yeah.
So there may not have been a shot on unless you want to try and maybe place it into the far corner. But that's again, running full pace straight at the goal. That's an extremely tough one to hit with the outside of your leg into that corner. So
low percentage.
I wouldn't even say it was a poor piece of attacking. I'd actually just say it's a brilliant piece of goalkeeping and defending out of Johnny Cooper. The two of them, I'd say they've definitely worked on it or talked about it in the past because, it's a natural instinct that he goes against, and it's ultimately a big moment in the game that's gone by.
By all accounts, after the drawn game, the keepers in the Dublin setup and the goalkeeping coach were working again and again the goal, and the positioning for the goal from Cluxton's perspective, and his mistake. Everybody was saying what a game he'd had.
I tell you, again, that's the level that they're operating at, though. It's those minute details are being, looked upon again and again. I thought Spillane did absolutely brilliantly. He gives him the eyes and sticks it in the bottom corner near post, which is a much harder one. Maybe is Cluxton too far out? I don't think so. I think it's just a brilliant finish.
And that was the way they were playing. They were pushing everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it probably shows why they're such worthy champions, and they've won 5 in a row too.
Yeah. So we're kind of having a mini Stephen Cluxton special a little bit later on. From your perspective, if Cluxton goes, is that the end of this team? That's the end of an era? Or can the team continue to be at the same level they're at without the greatest goalkeeper of all time?
I think the team can continue. There's no doubt there. I think they will evolve and they'll
level and better.
I don't know. I think Evan Comerford or whoever is behind Stephen Cluxton needs a year or 2 years before you really know whether they're at that level. It's actually unfortunate on the two of them that they're going to be compared to him consistently.
Yeah. Like David
Moyes. But he is their Tom Brady. He's their quarterback. You see it so often. He puts the ball down and it's on the opposition 65 out wide, and the ball is barely off the ground into someone's chest, and then they have McCaffrey and these boys screaming through the middle.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to defend against. And he has perfected that. He's changed the whole game of Gaelic football over the last few years.
And if you don't have a keeper who can do that, you're miles behind.
And maybe Evan Comfort can, or maybe it's slightly different. Maybe it's 10 or 15 yards deeper that he's kicking it. That's a different ball game then again. But you probably have to give him the space to allow him to develop. And it's I wouldn't like to be going into Stephen Cluxton's shoes if he does decide to retire. I think there's a lot of rumours floating around, but I don't think anyone knows bar himself.
And I'd say even he might take his time to make his mind up.
Yeah.
He deserves that at least. It's 7:41 this morning. Here's what's coming up. So we're going to bring in the sports pages right now. Cluxton's impact, we're going to get into some details with that a little bit later on with Rory Beggan. You can tune in around about 8:20 for Eoin in Japan. He's been talking to the South African scrum coach and asking him about the doping culture in South African rugby. So that's coming your way around then. He's also been speaking with the Irish sumo star. This is true. There's a man from Roscommon who has become Ireland's first ever sumo wrestling star and is now a broadcaster in Japan as well. Emile Heskey joined us last week in studio. I'll bring you that around about 8:50. Going to talk about the Pat Smullen race at the weekend with Tom Malone around about 9:05. And then the Champions League is back tonight, overshadowed somewhat by some stories that maybe Jurgen Klopp doesn't like the weather, which we'll get into now in the papers. I'm going to start with the Irish Daily Mail, and the back page here is "We Are Family." And it's Connolly needed dub structure, says Darcy. So Declan Darcy has been doing interviews, quite wide-ranging interviews, and he said that ultimately the decision to bring Dermot Connolly back, first and foremost, what was really important for us was the care of Dermot. Things weren't going well for him, probably outside of football, and I think he needed football, he needed structure, and whatever about whether he was to function within our group or not, to bring him back into the group was the right thing to do. So that makes a lot of sense from Dublin's perspective then, if you just implicate the decision isn't really about football, it's about just, he's one of us, we're going to look after him. I'm sure though, if you were a sub, there must have been a little bit going, there goes my game time.
Maybe, yeah. But they've been pretty remorseless over the last few years. And it's the way they've built it. I actually think that probably does ring true. They strike me as the sort of group that they would bring him back in for that reason. But yeah, I think he talks about there about how it would affect the group or whatever. I think McCaffrey came out during the week saying he was buzzing for the first training session back. There's a lot of guys in that group, subs or not, who maybe had their game time cut down, who there's a whole cohort of that team who realise what he did for them for 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Maybe this 5 hour doesn't exist without him. Yeah,
it probably doesn't. Certainly there's moments of magic there that he's brought to that team, and I think there's still a whole pile of that team would respect that and be very, very happy that he was back as part of the group again.
Yeah, and his second half performance, it was kind of there were elements of pure genius in it.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of people talk about the pass to Kieran Kilkenny, but the turnover in the tackle is unbelievable. Yes. Before that, he dispossesses the man, and 3 seconds later it's on the opposition 21, and there's no one else in that field can do that. Even right till the last minute he's supporting that inside forward line, and he's a presence there that really drove them on in that second half. Even if he wasn't being the one on the scoreboard or whatever, he was just look, I think had he stayed playing for the last couple of years, we'd be talking about would he be one of the best of all time.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that over the last couple of years, people they want to see him so much that it's gone against him.
Yeah, I hope that he sticks around next year. There's no chat of him retiring at this stage and has a full season.
Yeah, well, you come back refreshed after maybe a year out of it, kind of reignites the flame again for another few years.
Yeah, so. Yeah. What have you got?
On the back of the Sun, as you talked about earlier on, it's 6 drugs and rock and roll. A nice apt headline. Jurgen Klopp talking about his players who haven't gone nuts over the summer since their win, and that they're addicted to winning going forward. De Gea has signed a new a new £350,000 a week deal at Manchester United. I think it had been mooted for a while. So, and the last up the top, we have the GA ground control. It appears that Dublin won't play 2 games at Croke Park next year. I think there'd been
It's really difficult to sort that out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Such a difficult thing to sort out, not having 2 home games in three match tournament.
Yeah, I think bringing. I think if they were to play Kerry or something in Thurles, it'd have a
sensational.
Yeah. You know, like there's plenty of grounds around the middle of the country that can host those games. And if you put 30 or 40,000 into those stadiums, it's an unbelievable atmosphere. Whereas unfortunately in Croke Park, it's just it dies a small bit.
I think as well, if there are the retirements that we think there will be, then there's going to be a sense of jeopardy. More Dubs fans will go to those games because they'll feel like there's a chance of them losing.
Yeah,
they'll just mean more, you know. The Irish Independent, Dublin to be forced out of Croke Park for neutral games. The same story there. Colm Key says that one, and that's Andrew Conway putting his hand up in training because Rob Kearney is now a serious doubt for the game against Scotland with a calf injury, calf and quad, I think. Or certainly just saying calf there, and so he's going to be gone. Robbie Henshaw's going to be gone. Keith Earls is still in a race to be fit, and of course we haven't seen any Joey Carberry play any meaningful minutes, so it suddenly leaves the back line looking like not our first choice back line anyway.
Yeah, they just don't have any luck when it comes to a World Cup, do they, like over the last few years? But yeah, it is a small bit worrying. Kearney is the rock there that the rest of them play off, so yeah, like that Scotland game now becomes huge, you know, and that is it's a tricky group.
Yeah.
People said at the time that it's very easy. Like you have the hosts, Scotland, and I wouldn't like to be going into the last game against Samoa looking for something.
No, and you wouldn't want to be one of those players who has to go into battle against Samoa because I think Ron O'Gara was with us recently and saying players are going to get injured in that game. That's how those games work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions about retirement in the papers, like Colm Key's names: Owen O'Gara, Darren Daly, Bernard Brogan, Paddy Andrews, Rory O'Carroll, Michael Darragh Macaulay, Cian O'Sullivan and Kevin McMenamin, who all have a decision to make at some point in the near future. I thought Michael Darragh Macaulay had a great season. Yeah,
he was unfortunate to miss out. He was, you know, himself and Fenton ask a lot of different questions in that midfield.
Yeah.
Like Fenton is this Rolls Royce, and then Macaulay he's such a powerful runner. He's very, very physical, you know, and he really, the two of them complemented each other very well. I think it was more, probably the decision to leave him out was more in response to the way Kerry had played and getting someone else in there to do a job on Jack Barry and Brian and David Moore. I think the retirements angle, I think a lot of it is going to come down to what Jim does. A lot of those players have soldiered for a long time with him, and if it's a fresh voice that goes in there, then maybe they might say, you know, I've given my time now.
Yeah.
I don't feel like, you know, going through the process of trying to get on the trust of the manager again. So I think and
some of them, a new manager might come in and go, you've been a great servant, you've got your 5 in a row, I'm probably going to go with one of the younger lads to start with next season. You might not get your place back.
Yeah, well, if it's a 3-year thing for that new manager, or if it's a 3-year contract, their first year, like maybe they're looking at those guys and going, they won't be here for 3 years, so I need to start to build something for when they're gone, and that's how it happens. But look, I mean, the people named in that list have given a huge amount to Dublin football, and it will be completely on their terms if they decide to leave.
Yeah, now Jim Gavin's a young man. He's 48. And Desi Farrell, Donegal Boyle is saying, is most likely the next Dublin manager if Jim Gavin goes. Jim Gavin could decide, you know what, I'm actually really enjoying it. Look what we've just done. We can go on and do this for another.
Yeah.
I can be Brian Cody. I can be Mickey Hart. Like, who knows?
Yeah, Jim is the only one who knows that. Yeah, it's a very tough one to call. I think the main reason people are probably speculating is because you're in completely uncharted territory here. Like, you know, nobody knows what it's like to reach that summit of 5 All-Irelands in a row and how it makes you feel. Does it energise you to go again, or does it
leave
you going,
spent.
that's it now.
Yeah.
That's it, I've given everything I have to this.
Yeah. Maybe Kieran Kilkenny and Conor Callahan decide they want to be hurlers. Like, it's not beyond the bounds possibility that Con goes, right, I've done that, I want to go and do this because I'm just as good at this other thing over here.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen somehow.
I mean, it's not impossible.
Yeah, it's not impossible. It's not impossible, but I'd think...
He's only 22, he could easily do it.
Yeah.
That'll be some story,
He'll
wouldn't
also
it?
go on to be one of the greatest footballers of all time if he keeps going at the rate he's going. So
Yeah.
I think that's enough of a legacy to leave behind.
It's not a bad legacy, fair enough. But what if you were to win an All-Ireland hurling title with the Dubs?
Yeah.
Having been like a member of the 5 in a row team.
Yeah,
That's not a bad legacy.
It does, yeah. You become the next
No.
Jimmy Barry Murphy, really, don't you?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That'd be pretty good.
Yeah. No, you might be onto something there.
And suddenly they look beatable,
There's a few straws being clutched at there now.
Hey, we've got to clutch at whatever we can get. The rule changes, we should get to that as well, because obviously the second tier championship, the structure of it, the rule that's going to be voted on was made public, or certainly, I don't know if it was leaked or if it was emailed out in a press release yesterday. The other thing is, though, that I wanted to talk to you specifically about was the advanced mark, right?
Inside the
forward line.
Yeah.
Yeah, so provided the kick comes from outside the 45 and travels a minimum of 20 metres, that's going to happen.
I missed pretty much the whole league where it was trialled. I think the kick-out mark has been a massive success, and I think what people want to do is to start the kicking into the inside forward line to come back. I think what you might find with that inside mark is it'll only be in a situation where a forward catches a ball and is off balance or falling down that you'll see it used. Most of the time forwards will take it on. It's a natural instinct.
So Gainey made a catch, amazing catch on the 21.
Yeah.
No score came off it.
Yeah, it's that situation where you might have two men around you, or you're off balance. But if you get a couple of the balls that Conor Callahan got, where he's out in front catching, I think he's turning and taking on his man.
Because he thinks there's a goal on.
Yeah, I think that rule is a big. It's tough for defenders. It's very, very tough for defenders.
How the hell do you mark Tommy Walsh?
Yeah.
And does it not change the game in a way that doesn't need changed that much? Do you know what I mean?
Maybe.
Suddenly every county is looking for a 6'7", 6'8" inside forward who they're going to lorry ball in on and hope that he can...
I think defences are too good in this day and age to allow that to happen, though. The reason why Kerry, and we talked about it here actually on the board, the reason why Kerry are so good is because they get into the right area to deliver that ball where it's diagonal and he makes a straight run, and it's very hard to defend against. But like the day coming up to a 65 and launching this big high ball in, that's a very tough ball to go and win. I don't think it'll change the game massively. I think during the league everyone said the same thing. They said it's very, very good to an extent, but it's not actually really changing the outlook of a team. Teams aren't, they're not looking for the high one. It's more the...
It was such a weird situation, though.
Yeah, where some certain teams just didn't do it at all.
The Dubs tried it.
Yeah, they were just like, it's not going to come in, so we're just going to take it that it's not going to come in. But maybe is it a response to the mass defence over the last years? I think it needs to be maybe trialled again. But
you should certainly be willing to throw it out if it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
We don't really want the game to be Aussie rules, do we?
No, but I mean, how many times in the first game did we look at some unbelievable fielding in the middle of the field and go, Jesus, that was brilliant. And the Gainey catch which you referenced there, like, it was, again, brilliant to look at that. It's something that Gaelic football was missing for a few years, where the high catch was nearly being penalised because of what was happening on the ground. Yeah,
okay, fair enough. The second tier of
the football,
what do you think?
I think it's dancing around the inequity of the provincial system. like, I can understand the tiered championship. The girls, our ladies, had a brilliant victory in the intermediate there on Sunday, you know, and it's great for teams to have that opportunity to go and play and win in All Ireland. But I think the problem, and it's probably the players especially, is the promotion of the games will die for that second tier championship. We've seen what happened with hurling, and I think that's the biggest thing for the players, is do you just get left behind? Then, as I said, the provincial situation is, like, if you're a Division 3 or 4 team in Leinster or in Ulster, it's very, very tough on you.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to the other two provinces where there's 5 and 6 teams, you know.
Yeah.
It's very tough on those.
I'm going to read out the proposal. The provincial championships will be played as currently. The All-Ireland qualifiers will be open to teams from Divisions 1 and 2 and any 3 or 4 teams who qualify from their provincial final. So basically, if you're a Division 3 or 4 team, you've got to reach a provincial final. This will mean only 2 full rounds of All-Ireland qualifiers in future as opposed to 4. An additional preliminary round is provided for in years where more than 8 teams are eligible to participate in round 1. So there'll be an extra round of qualifiers if you got 4 Division 3 teams or Division 4 teams qualifying through. And then you introduce a new straight knockout Tier 2 championship. So after that is all over, after you get beaten in your provincial championship, then you go into a Tier 2 championship for Division 3 and 4 teams that don't reach the provincial finals.
Yeah, like, is the Super 8's just gone now?
I think that
is it still incorporating it?
I think it was, yeah. But the Division 3 and 4 second tier championship doesn't mean anything. You don't get promoted. You don't get...
Yeah, you don't get to go into the following year's first tier, which kind of defeats the purpose. There needs to be some sort of reward at the end of that, so that if you do go and win a championship, you know you're guaranteed a place in the following year's.
There's a reason for it.
Sam Maguire, you know, and that would be a nice link between the two. You know, you see the Europa League champions, the difference it made when the Europa League champions go into Pot 1 in the Champions League for the following season.
Yeah.
Do you know, and that's a very easy fix in there. But I'd like to, you know, a lot of the time it comes out. I'd actually like to see maybe just a study done with players who are from traditionally Division 3 and 4 counties, and ask them, you know, we've had a bit of success in the last few years, we're back down Division 3 next year, but, like, you know, players who've played in Division 3 and 4 all their lives, like, how do they feel about it? What do they think that this championship is actually a good idea, that, you know, they have a realistic chance of winning something, or is it another thing where you're just like, I'm disinterested in that and it's ultimately going to drive me away?
If it was connected to the next year's championship, I think it would transform things. Like if you were automatically, if it wasn't a Super 8 anymore, but a Super 7 plus 1, and that plus 1 was the next year, then maybe this thing might actually work.
Yeah, or can you run it off? Can you run it off while the other qualifiers are going on, where the winner of the second championship goes in?
You could.
Goes in, but then is there teams in Sam Maguire going, hold on a second, we have a better chance of going through here if we
losing this first round.
But, like, look, you can't win. You can't. Like, I understand why they're doing it. I think a well-structured second-tier championship might work, but it's going to take a few iterations before you get to something that everyone's happy with, I think.
If only we had, like, a league system that gave us an example of how it would work.
Yeah.
And the league is producing the best, most competitive football for crowds who actually enjoy the games in provincial grounds.
It does put a lot more emphasis on the league, though, because it's based on your league standings, which means, you know, if you can't be. But what happens? I'd like to know what happens with the 2 teams relegated out of Division 2 and the 2 teams promoted out of Division 3.
I presume that year you're still a Division 2 team, a Division 3 team, and
you see, they're the small things which can really change this, where, like, if you're a team that's promoted out of Division 3, you know you're in the Sam Maguire for the following summer. It's a much bigger
carrot
fillip than and for teams that are relegated, you know, it ultimately, you know, it signals the end of your time in the Sam Maguire for that year as well.
Yeah. So those games will actually mean something. On to the Irish Times here. We'll come back to all that. If you've got any views on it, it's 8 o'clock this morning. If you've got any views on it, you can get us at the hashtag OTBAM. Great worry is that Dublin have become unbeatable is the headline on Kevin McStay's column. Liverpool in action against Napoli tonight. Liverpool still have everything to prove in Europe, says Klopp. Can they go back to back? And they're saying the proposal to limit Dublin's Croke Park matches must wait until 2020. I thought so, as in
it's a separate proposal, I would say, to limit their chances of playing at Croke Park in Leinster, I suppose, as well, is it?
Oh, is that the one where they're going to get straight through to the semi-final in Leinster?
It must be, yeah.
As opposed to the Super 8 games. Okay, and then here is Jerry Thornley's column today. Birthplace has no bearing on your right to play for Ireland. So Jerry Thornley's fighting back against the... in particular, he says, Luke Fitzgerald's, this one here, some of the complaints are for purely rugby reasons, even if the notion expressed again this week by Luke Fitzgerald that a player's birthplace should in any way influence Ireland's selection policy in this World Cup is plain daft. He points out the absolute rank hypocrisy of New Zealand having a go at Bundy Aki, who was Ian Foster, talking about Bundy. They've turned him into an Irishman. He looks like an Irishman now, doesn't he? Which is, pretty racist, really, when you think that people have to look like the country that they are ethnically from, because there's nobody born here from all around the world who doesn't look like the place that they were born. It's ridiculous stuff from Foster. But then he goes on to talk about Pichot and his plans for World Rugby not actually helping the island nations. So there is rank hypocrisy throughout this, which is a good point. And it's a bit of a counterbalance to the argument that the residency rule is ruining rugby.
Yeah, I don't think it's as black and white as people make out. It's been going on for years in the Southern Hemisphere. I know Kevin Kilban was on, and he was kind of saying that it's wrong that someone who has been here for 3 years takes the place of someone who's been here for 31 or 32 years. But you can't I don't really know where I stand on it. I think 3 years is short, and I think moving it to 5 is much better, because I think after 5 years you do become naturalised in the place. But I don't know. It sparks the question of if rugby was promoted properly in a lot of the island nations, how good could they be with some of the players? How good if they were, with some of the players who could have stayed there and played on.
But the thing about rugby is that, they don't want the island nations to become strong, because they can go there, steal players at the age of 16, take them away from home, and move them to every country in the rugby playing world and steal those players. It's proper old school colonialism of the worst kind, and rugby does not want that to be interrupted. I kind of think that if you live in a country and you're willing to move to a country and you're working in that country, you should have all the rights afforded to the people who are from that country. That's my view. It's kind of
there's us as a nation, we've done it in a lot of other countries around the world for years.
So let's not be hypocrites when it comes to this.
Yeah,
would be my take on it.
The back of the Mirror today is I'm not being frozen out, Jurgen Klopp, after his agent claimed yesterday that the British weather would be the reason that he wasn't going to stay on at Liverpool. As a Liverpool fan, I am praying to God he signs a new contract.
I think that they should just give him whatever he wants. If it's
I don't think it's whatever he wants. I think he's quite happy. I think it'll come down to whether or not he wants a break. He's done 7 years at Mainz. He did exactly 7 years at Dortmund. At the end of 2022, he'll have done 7 years at Liverpool, I think. And it'll come down to him.
Do you give him a break and say, take a couple of years there?
Come back?
Whenever you're ready, we'll have a job for you. Even if we're doing well, we'll still have a job for you.
It seems to be only the FAI that do that, I think, the succession plan. But
it's working.
Yeah, maybe you might give it to an assistant, but I think that's a very tough job to take for 2 years. You're not really able to put your own stamp on it. And
don't tell your man.
And everyone there is going, all right, we're just waiting for Jurgen to come back around.
No, you keep all that secret. That's strictly on the down low.
Yeah.
The back of the Guardian is the clash from last night. El Ghazi and Tyrone Mings surviving a VAR. They went to go and see exactly, because it could have been a red card for both of them, which might have turned the game somewhat. It finished 0-0. West Ham had a man sent off. Villa are out of the relegation zone, but West Ham missed the opportunity to go third, and they weren't very good anyway.
Yeah, this year's Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer moment.
They were showing when there was on Sky this morning, Carr had one with Arbeloa, where Arbeloa kind of backs into him, Carr pushes him, and then gets down to do that kind of, the same look he had in his face when he spat at that woman?
Yeah.
Remember that? He's doing that. And straight in, Xabi Alonso, pushing Carr out of the way. I'm like, good man, Xabi Alonso.
Yeah, there was a large Spanish cohort in that team.
Yeah, and he was
at the
looking
time,
after his boy, but
but I think it's that, like, it's a high level sport, like and at that level there would be a lot of egos, I would say.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he was happy to take on Jamie Carr and he wasn't backing down.
Not a problem.
He kept pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. I was like, good man.
The back or the front of the sports section of the Irish Examiner today is injury headache with Henshaw and Kearney in a bit of injury bother, especially for this first game, but hopefully not for a bit more of the tournament. I think those two especially have
Kearney
been
missing's a disaster.
Yeah, he's been
playing really well.
He has been that rock. It's quite tough now. Ireland haven't had any luck at all with injuries. The back of the Times today has a story on a private equity firm, CVC Capital, who also have a stake in the Guinness Pro 14 and the Gallagher Premiership. It's reporting that they've bought a 15% stake in the Six Nations now as well.
Yeah.
So I think they're really starting to have a bit of a footprint in rugby, and I know a lot of those leagues were looking for outside investment. So, maybe it could be a good thing. And up in the top right corner, to all the Liverpool supporters in Napoli who have been told to stay in their hotel rooms. There's been a bit of talk. All right, I think may have been a small bit of trouble there last year on the away game. So.
The rugby is going to end up in a European Super League. That's like an NFL-style European Super League, which might be exactly the right thing to do. Have an Irish conference, a French conference, a Welsh conference, a Scottish conference, an English conference, and then 2 Italian teams. Let them play. You play out of conference all the time. There's enough there to make it proper 32 teams.
Yeah, they've probably reached their capacity and what they can achieve now within their own sections.
Yeah.
But it's going to raise the question of how do you regulate the owners in France with the,
salary cap
in Ireland, or something.
I think
how do you
just sign everybody up to the same rules and then audit them properly.
Yeah.
And obviously there are teams break rules all the time. Not looking at the Patriots, but I mean, come on, Tom Brady taking below average money for all that time. But what it'll mean is that they'll actually be able to have proper player welfare. They could have like an 18 or 20 game season. The Six Nations will then be part of the season, so the clubs in the Six Nations won't be at war, because the same people will be around the same boardrooms going, well, this is when we massively make the money from the Six Nations, and this is how we try and raise the club game. So I think it's going to work.
It probably stops the friction there. All right, the back of the Daily Star today, Cloud9 again. It's a story about Jurgen Klopp and the weather. Doubts about Kearney, and up the top, we talked about the interview with Declan Darcy today, just talking about how this 5-year period has taken a lot out of Jim Gavin.
Yeah.
So when one of your selectors is coming out and saying that, it can be kind of a bit of a telltale sign.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't be terribly surprised if they're all going. So, okay, competition time. The Boyle Sports World Grand Prix of Darts returns to City West Convention Centre from the 6th to the 12th of October, all this week on OTB AM, with thanks to the PDC. We're giving you the chance to win the ultimate darting experience. You and a guest will win 2 VIP tickets to the Boyle Sports World Grand Prix final, plus a night stay at the City West Hotel, including breakfast, on Saturday, the 12th of October. We're also giving a pair of tickets to Friday's semi-finals away every morning this week. There are 2 steps to enter the competition. Share OTB AM wherever you're watching or listening. You can retweet if you're tweeting this comp, and you can tell us who won the 2018 World Grand Prix of Darts. After this quick break, you're going to hear Jim Gavin talking about the professionalism and dedication of Stephen Cluxton. Then Rory Beggan is going to join us to talk about the Dublin #1.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes but for you in the community. Check out our amazing offers for families with kids camps, sport academies and birthday parties. Or for adults, why not join our gym with a 50-metre pool? Or your club, school, friends can book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our athletics track, soccer, basketball or badminton courts and many more. Check us out on sportirelandcampus.ie.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
OTB Sports Radio.
That's the result of hundreds of hours on the pitch. I've seen that if you look back in his stance. I've seen that. That's not the first time I've seen that. And Josh Moore and his goalkeeping coach and the goalkeeping coaches that have worked with him deserve credit for that. So that's something that you see replicated. You know, I saw it later on this week. I saw it on the day after the replay. Him spending 2 hours on the pitch with Evan coming for the goalkeeper and Michael Shields from Sylvester's, the three of them, with the goalkeeping coach, working on trying to rectify his positioning for Keelan Spillan's goal in the first game. So that's somebody who's dedicated to their craft, and the result of that is what you see in those clutch moments, from have that composure to make himself big and strong and, you know, just do his job, which that's what Stephen does. He does his job. As I said, that's somebody who's a master of his craft. Yeah. And through that, I suppose, through that example, he inspires people around him. That's, you know, Stephen is well able to talk, and he's very articulate, and people listen. But how he demonstrates, I suppose, his actions, that's what I'm interested in. And that's what he does. He's a doer.
Yeah, and at the end of the game, after he'd made his speech, after they'd all run over to the hill, it was clear that Stephen Cluxton did a lap of honour. I don't know if he's done it every year, but certainly everybody's interpreting it now as some kind of sign that perhaps maybe the Stephen Cluxton era is over. Rory Beggan is with us this morning to give us a goalkeeper's perspective on all this. Rory, good morning to you. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing the best. How are you?
Yeah, great. So look, we're trying to put some context on the career that Stephen Cluxton has had. People are claiming he's the most influential Gaelic footballer of his generation, and who knows, maybe of all time. How important was Cluxton as somebody that you kind of looked at and watched and saw what he was doing when you were coming through as a goalkeeper?
Yeah, he was obviously a huge influence on myself coming through. And I'd say most goalkeepers will tell you the same, but I imagine most managers will tell you that too. I think they've started to base their clubs, their teams around what Stephen Cluxton has done, what Dublin have done in regards to goalkeeping in terms of kickouts and so on. And I think that has probably upped the class of goalkeepers now these days. And I've watched him. I watch him closely in games, just how cool he is when he's taking his kickouts, that he's fit to give it to his man at ease, give it to his teammates at ease at pressure situations. And you know, that's a big part of what Stephen does. You know, under them tough and clutch moments, you know, he does execute what he has to do, and that's probably set him away from the rest for a long time there. And he's been a huge influence on me in terms of that there. Probably a lot of it, just what he does in them big situations.
Is there stuff that you can just copy? Is there stuff that you kind of can see, okay, he's doing this, I can just copy that? Or do you have to always see what he's doing, take into account the context of the players that he has outfield, and then go, well, in my scenario, that would be something slightly different? Do you have to remodel what he's doing in some ways?
Yeah, well, I suppose you have to get your body position right to even hit the kick out, to make sure you're assessing all options and picking the right one. The decision making is down to the keeper as well. The execution's down to the goalkeeper, but a lot of it is down to the players out the field, and that's something Dublin have possessed this last 10 years, is players who want the ball, players who are getting on the ball and making good runs and getting in the good positions to receive the ball. That is huge for a goalkeeper, and you know, it's either that there or it's a 50-50 ball out the field, more or less. But Stephen seems to pick the right option 9 times out of 10, and that is a lot down to the players who are making the runs for the ball. I would have watched them a couple of times from the other end of the field when we played them, and you can see that the defenders are making 2-3 runs to receive a ball at times, and it's creating space for maybe a midfielder to pop into a space, creating a space for maybe a half forward to pop into. So, you know what? There's 12 players there who are looking to receive the ball from a kick out, and seems like he can pick out the right option every time.
Hi Rory. There's been a lot of discussion, I suppose, over the last while, especially the two finals when Kerry pushed up on the Dublin kick out with their 3 banks of 4. Have you seen much of it, or what's your take on it as a goalie looking out on that? How do you beat that press? Or even from playing against Dublin in the league, how do you beat their press? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I've came across it once or twice, all right, and it's definitely something very different to what I'm used to. Every single space that you're able to hit is blocked up, so it's really up to the players then to try and find some spaces. What I would have noticed with Dublin, what gave them a wee bit of joy was an overload on one wing and getting their main fetchers over to that side. Where Brian Howard in the first game, he caught a lovely ball under the Hogan stand and they worked the ball for Jack McCaffrey's goal. But I would find that in those situations, no matter if you get the short kick out of the way, there's that many players up the field that it's going to be really, really hard for the team to get the ball out. Where Dublin are very good at that forward press. So I would find that you try and get your players over to an overloaded situation where you try and get a lot of your players over to one side of the field, and you can either drag them players over to pull out space from maybe somewhere else, but most of the time you'll have more players over one side of the field, and you're sort of hitting and hoping into that area that you have more players that usually win that break. That's what I would find would be the most best part of getting out of it. But I think with the short kick out, you're putting your defence under a lot of pressure, and with Dublin and that there getting the press up, it's forcing yourself into a mistake in a bad area of the field. So I'd find that maybe that overloaded area would probably be the best place to maybe try and beat the press at some stage.
It does help when you've got Brian Howard who can fetch the ball under the Hogan stand, as you said, or take a short one with 3 lads around him and dance around all 3 of them in the space of a telephone box. Holy shit, that guy's good.
Yeah. Big time. Just another aspect of it, Cluxton was probably one of the first goalies I saw, especially in 2011 when you saw the free in the last minute, and it's probably people like yourself who've taken that on now over the last few years. You didn't see Cluxton going up over the last maybe 3 or 4. Was he the kind of start of a change, or had you always taken frees before he had even made it popular by winning All-Ireland finals doing it?
No, I wasn't taking frees at that stage. It would have been Darren Hughes actually would have been taking the frees from on or Scotstown at the time, and Darren would like to say this, he was getting older, the legs weren't getting the ball off the ground, so I would have practiced them myself, but I've never been anywhere near taking them, and he just said come up and take it in the league game one day, and I hit 2 and just sort of took off from there a wee bit. But watching Cluxton down the years, just striking them over a disease was an influence, but I was never anywhere near taking them for Scotstown or Monaghan, but just came to a stage where you took one in a game and you scored it, and you just continued to take them then. And it all started in a league game for Scotstown that meant nothing at the end of the year, and just sort of took off from there. And sort of watching Stephen closely, the way he takes his frees, you sort of try to model yourself around it, and we bit of work with the goalkeeping coach as well.
Were you always a goalkeeper, Rory?
I was always not a great outfielder up until about 14s, under 16s, and then I sort of moved into goals. The other way more so.
And when that move happened, was it something that you embraced straight away? You were like, actually, you know what, I could be good at this, or were you, maybe I'll do this for a year and move on to something else?
No, it would have started off. I went into it and I wasn't really fond of it, really, when I got into it. When I was in and out at 13s and 16s, coming in and out, playing outfield, but going into goals the odd time, and wasn't really fond of it. But it came to 16s and I knew maybe goalkeeping was probably my best opportunity of playing football regularly, and I just started to work at it a lot more. I got my first taste of goalkeeping coaching at County Minors, and once I got called into the under-21s, that's where I met Steve Williams, and he done a lot of work with me and made me enjoy goalkeeping a lot more in terms of shot stopping drills, high ball drills, kicking out drills. It made goalkeeping a wee bit more enjoyable, and as the game's progressed now, I suppose goalkeeping is a lot more enjoyable and a lot more exciting for goalkeepers to do. There's a lot more for goalkeepers to do, and I think that's down just to the way the game's going, but you'll probably see a lot more goalkeepers coming through. But I've definitely enjoyed it this last number of years. At the start I didn't really, but as I got introduced to goalkeeping coaching, I got even the more enjoyable side of it.
Steve Williams, the Dundalk goalkeeper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so people will be kind of familiar with his exploits down through the years in their European run as well. And I think he's worked with loads of GA goalkeepers over the last while as well. So you can kind of see that the science is improving. Even in the drawn game, there's great shots where Dublin have a press on, and ultimately Stephen Cluxton ends up marking Tommy Walsh. It's like, you know, it's a high wire act for everybody involved, because if the ball gets punted over the midfield somehow, then suddenly he's in a foot race with Tommy Walsh, and if he loses it, it's game over. Is that something that that's one of your jobs as well, if the team goes down to 14 men, that when there is a press that you're coming out field to mark somebody?
Yeah, I suppose a lot of it was down to maybe being down a player. Where obviously Dublin were down 14 men, I think he probably had to come out to mark Tommy Walsh. Something I haven't came across yet, and that's something I hope I don't have to do, is come out and mark somebody. But yeah, I remember watching that there and thinking all David Moran probably had to do here was kick a ball at Tommy Walsh. It's hard to know whether Stephen was going to commit to the tackle or come back to his goals, but I remember watching it going, gee, Stephen Cluxton marking Tommy Walsh here, just get the ball to Tommy Walsh. But I think Stephen Cluxton, he plays centre half back for his club or something, so he might be well used to that situation. Hopefully I not have to suck into that situation at any stage, but if I have to do it, I'll do it.
Yeah, Rory,
I wouldn't just trust me marking me.
One of the reasons that we wanted to do this piece with you was because there's strong speculation that Cluxton might retire. I kind of started this whole piece with the discussion about the fact that he did the lap of honour. It's kind of unusual, and even the way Jim was so effusive in his praise about him, it felt like they needed to tell everybody just how amazing Cluxton is. So I think certainly we're hearing that there's an expectation among some of his teammates that this might be the end of the Cluxton era. Can you put some of that in context for us, just how important, as a member of the Goalkeepers Union, how important Stephen Cluxton has been to Gaelic football?
Yeah, that's obviously, it'll be huge news whenever it comes out, and I personally don't think he may give it one more year, but the signs are there too, but he will be a huge miss, definitely. I think obviously Emma Comfort is the next man in line, and he's got an awful lot of experience the last number of years through Leinster finals. He's played some Super 8s games, he's played a lot of National League, so they seem to be bedding him in slowly, but just watch Stephen Cluxton in them big situations. That big save against Stephen O'Brien at the weekend, the kick out to Brian Howard for Jack Caffey's goal in the first game. Even the high balls, he's quite dominant in them in the two games. He'll be a huge miss. Just his overall persona in the dressing room probably is just his confidence in the team is probably the confidence he exudes probably about the dressing room and that there. That'll be a huge miss. But obviously what he does on the field will be probably what Dublin miss the most. Winning kick-outs in tough situations, making big plays, and it'll just something Evan Comfort has a big boots to fill. But with Dublin, they've replaced big players down the years, and they could very well do the same here.
Is he the footballer of the year this year, do you think?
It's a tight call. It definitely would have him in the top three between him, probably McCaffrey and Conor O'Callaghan. I would be probably leaning towards Conor O'Callaghan, but I wouldn't begrudge Stephen Cluxton winning footballer of the year. He's definitely well in with a shout anyway. Yeah.
The point you make about Evan Comfort is obviously very well made, and we were chatting a bit about that earlier on. Like, in terms of the distribution that Cluxton has, presumably Evan Comfort can mimic that, but it's the decision making that you talked about, when to hit it to the side that you're overloaded, when to take that risk, when to go short. How do you get good at that, Rory?
It just comes with experience, and that's what it does. It comes with games, it comes with being put in those situations. You can do all you want at training, but games are a completely different scenario. That's what I found I would have improved, just playing more games and seeing how teams set up and so on. And you can do it in training, but teams know what your systems are, teams know what your strategies are. When you go into games, it's where you're executing it under pressure with crowd watching you. And that's where he's just ultimately going to have to get better at it, is during games. And he's going to make mistakes. Stephen's made mistakes. We've all made mistakes doing it. He's just going to have to he's going to make mistakes, going to learn from them, but I suppose that's where he's going to get better at it. And in fairness to Dublin, in fairness to Jim and the team, he has been embedded into them in Leinster finals. He's played Super 8s games there. He's played National League games on the big crowd, so he's used to them situations. But when it comes to All Ireland semi-finals and finals, that's where he'll really be tested. And it's gonna take a couple of years to maybe bed him in and make him the number one. But it just takes games, it takes years of experience, and look, he's a young fella. He'll get that.
Rory, last time everybody heard about you around the country was because you'd scored a goal for Cluxton in a recent championship match. You weren't playing outfield, were you?
No. It was unfortunate enough. I took a free kick from a long way out, and I sort of dropped in and fell in the net. It wasn't anything special now.
The way I heard it was that you dribbled up past about 4 or 5 lads and stuck it in the back of the net before blowing kisses to the crowd.
No marking full forwards, but scoring goals at the far end is an easy one, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh well, look, if you want to keep telling people that, do tell people that. I keep telling people that. So no, I'll just get out there. It was an unfortunate enough goal, but look, I wasn't even going to claim it, so I'll just stick to scoring points with it.
Yeah, no worries. Listen, Rory, good to have you on this morning. Thanks a million for talking to us.
Thanks, Rory.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
It's Rory Beggan there, the Monaghan goalkeeper, talking about the importance of Cluxton. You can kind of see how he has changed the entire game.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing would be, now for kids who are putting goal at a young age, they're very more receptive to playing in goal because they see how important the position has become and how much people talk about it.
Yeah.
His kickouts revolutionised the game in that they made Dublin such a weapon. And I saw an article during the week saying that he's a lot to thank of the people who are playing outside in the middle of the field, but he was the one who started it. I would be surprised if he wasn't the one who was telling them where to go.
Yeah.
And his accuracy, like he was better this year, I think, than nearly any of the others, and he wasn't bad in any of those other years either.
No, that's the thing. You could have given him the All-Star every year, pretty much. I mean, there was maybe one year with a little bit of jitters in a couple of games, but like he always recovered from them, and that in turn is a sign of character. So that's a good trio for Footballer of the Year: Conor Callaghan, Jack McCaffrey and Cluxton.
Yeah, you'll have the forwards union, the backs union, and the goalkeepers union out in force.
Yeah. Do you guys get a vote on that? It's a GPA vote, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I think
it's not over yet, is it? You haven't had your vote.
No, we haven't. I think Stephen Cluxton was probably the most important player out of the three of them over the 2 games in the All-Ireland final, and that can sometimes be the thing that people remember. Over the course of the year, I think probably Jack McCaffrey or Conor Callaghan maybe might, they're neck and neck. I thought Con was brilliant again in the replay. So.
Yeah.
But look, any of the 3 of them will be worthy winners, and it's the second year in a row now that you've had 3 dubs going for Footballer of the Year.
Yeah, I mean that's not the official shortlist, obviously, just
yet.
But it won't be far off. I mean, David Moore might get a shout.
Yeah, he'd be thereabouts. I think sometimes you find that there's always one from the beaten All-Ireland finalists, but it's very hard to leave out any of those other 3, really.
Yeah. All right. Up next, we're going to cross over to Owen in Japan. First, though, with less than a week to go to Ireland's first game, we caught up with Nick Popplewell to talk about who he contacted during the special moments in his international rugby career. Have a look here with thanks to Vodafone. Team of us, everyone in.
Nicholas Popplewell, loosehead prop. I played for Ireland 1989 to 1999. Well, I think I do was that long ago. I received it when I was in work in Bray. Those were the days of landlines. There was no mobile phones. I would have rung my future wife to be Rachel, who was working in the bank. And then obviously Mum and Dad. Then after that, I was fairly happy about it, even though I think it was New Zealand and Lansdowne Road was going to be my first cap. So it wasn't going to be an easy one. And it proved out not to be an easy one, because I only lasted about 18 minutes. I broke 3 ribs. Oh, they were broken for me, apparently. It did come as a surprise. I mean, you could never presume, and they were the years when there was very much trading places. Things probably weren't quite as transparent as they are now, and it was difficult to get on. The one that would stand out would be, obviously, British Lions New Zealand Tour 93, getting picked for the first test. That's what things are, that's, to us, that's the Olympic medal. It's the gold medal. It's quite easy to get on a Lions tour, but to get a cap is a different scenario altogether. So my first mobile call I can recall, or significant call, was my wife Rachel was expecting and living in Ireland, and I was playing in Newcastle. And I decided I'd get a mobile phone, so when I got the call to say she was in labour and expecting our first child, that I'd just fly over and attend the birth. So I got this huge mobile phone. not quite like the big bricks, but you had the area which you pulled up. Phone call duly arrived on a Friday evening. We were playing a vital league match the next day against, I think it might have been Saracens at home. And I just put a call into our band and said, listen, Rob, Rachel's gone into labour. Best of luck tomorrow. And best of luck to the lads. And he said, you're not going anywhere, bud. You're playing this match tomorrow. So at half-time over the tannoy, a message went out just congratulating Popplewell on the birth of his daughter.
Good stuff there from Nick Popplewell. Right, it's time for us to head over to Japan and to our man in Japan for his latest dispatch. Here's Eoin Sheahan. Eoin, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ger. How are things? How are you, Michael?
Where are you, Eoin?
I'm in Disneyland, Ger. I didn't even know there was a Disneyland until I started taking trains out to Ireland training in Chiba, which is just east of Tokyo City. So you take a train east and the train is traditionally full, especially on the weekends, and then everybody gets off and goes to Disneyland while we continue on into the inner sanctum of Chiba, where the Ireland's team hotel is located. So Ireland's team duties today were pretty low-key. We had the Ruddock brothers, Kieran and Rhys Ruddock, doing media in Chiba. So I wasn't at a loose end afterwards. We could have gone and done some tourism or something in Tokyo City Centre, but all the accredited media here have a list of all the press conferences that are going on, and I saw that the Springboks were on in their hotel, the Hilton, which was pretty close by to the Ireland team hotel in Chiba. So I got a train out to towards the Hilton, and my Google Maps says change to the Disney line. I was like, Disney line? Oh, that's pretty cute. It's named after the theme park that is nearby. And then the train pulls up, and the windows are made out of Mickey Mouse faces. The handles that you hold onto are made out of Mickey Mouse faces. There is this emotional Disney soundtrack playing everywhere you go. You feel like you are a dwarf about to save Sleeping Beauty from a giant, but instead what you are doing is going to a South Africa rugby press conference.
Okay, there's a metaphor there somewhere, but I'm not sure what it is.
No, there's no metaphor there. Just you get kind of nostalgic and emotional, and you remember when Disney films were on loop in your childhood. That's what this whole place is bringing back memories of. The castle is right over there, but I'd have to pay in to give you a good shot of that. This is the Disneyland Hotel, and there is a beautiful shrub sculpture of Mickey Mouse right over my left shoulder.
I can see that. It's amazing. So we'll come back to Disney. I mean, there is definitely a metaphor. You were at the South African Media Day. Who was there? What were the questions? And you know, obviously South Africa, bit of a big story at the moment.
Yeah, so they did press yesterday and couldn't quite make it. It was just a bit too tight to the Ireland one. So I said I better get an opportunity to go down today, especially because there was a coach speaking today. It was just players yesterday. So you had Matt Proudfoot, who is an assistant coach with the Springboks. He's their forwards coach. He was speaking, but he was flanked by Damien de Land, and you also had Frans Malherbe on the other side of him. So you'll have de Land on the left and Malherbe on the right when we're watching this clip coming up. So the press conference, it's interesting actually, going to a South Africa one, because I've only been to Ireland press conferences and South Africa press conferences. You've got to hand it to the South African press officer. There's no control on the sort of questions. He let it run for 20-25 minutes. It went long, and it was the same with the embargoed copy afterwards. So the press officer wasn't trying to put a halt to any sort of question, so we could ask away. And I went, and I guess after the discussion that's been had, especially in Irish media over the last couple of days, I just wanted to get a couple of questions in about doping in South Africa, not necessarily the Springboks, but in South African rugby overall.
Eoin Sheahan from Off the Ball in Dublin. How are things?
Very well, thank you. And yourself?
Very well. So there's been a lot written in Irish media over the last couple of days about rugby and drugs in rugby, and a question for you as somebody who's worked in the Northern Hemisphere. It's kind of a two-pronged question. We've had to ask hard questions in Ireland of underage players in schools as well. Does rugby have a doping issue, and does South African rugby have a doping issue?
I think I'm a forwards coach, mate. You know, that's something for administrators to answer, and I wouldn't have to be able to answer that question. I don't have the information to answer that question. You know, if you ask me something about the game specifically, I can answer that, but I mean, that's for administrators.
Are you concerned at all about the image of South African rugby?
I think the image of South African rugby is portrayed about what you see on the field. We're competitive. We're a competitive nation. If you look at from our sevens team, how well they're competing on the world stage. Our junior side third in the world championships, junior championships. The Springboks competing well. The women's team qualifying. So I think that's the image of South African rugby that needs to be attained. I think if from a sports spectator point of view, of course, doping in sport is something that continually needs, not just rugby, continually needs to be addressed on a worldwide platform. So to talk about it from an assistant coach position, I don't think it's my role to speak about.
But I mean, at your level, at this level of the game, I don't know what happens at school level, but at your level of the game, people are tested anyway. So surely it shouldn't be.
We are tested weekly, and the players can test it probably most off days. Probably 6 to 8 players on an off-day basis would be tested every week from prior to every one of our camps that we've been on, right the way through the Rugby Championship into our preparation. Every Wednesday or Thursday of our off week, 6 to 8 players would be tested on a weekly basis.
That's an interesting point, because ultimately, if you do have a failed test, it shows that the testing is working. I'm not sure if that's something you go along with. Is kind of that's arguable, I guess. Like, do you think that testing is working? And I guess on a local level and on an international level,
it has to be working. I think that's what world sport attains. I mean, it's been proven in athletics the way the Russian Federation was the testing is the only viable mechanism to ensure clean sport. So.
But Gavin Comeski from the Irish Times.
Sorry, I couldn't get your name.
Sorry, Gavin Comeski from the Irish Times.
Hi, Gavin.
Do you understand the narrative? Because even if you look at what happened with Craven Week and all that, we just haven't seen anywhere else in the world that there's positive tests of teenage kids. Now, granted, teenagers aren't being tested as rigorously in other countries, but do you understand why this narrative keeps coming back?
I understand why the narrative is there. I'm just saying I'm not the most. I don't have that data to be able to comment on that. If you ask me on something about scrums and lineouts and the play game against New Zealand, I could comment on that. But I'm not someone who gathers data on that. We have a serious medical team in place in South African rugby that monitors that. Serious testing is done at this team, and that's a team I'm responsible for.
France, talking about this, exactly whether weather conditions could be quite slippery.
So the next question there is about weather, Owen. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it about the scrum and the weather. Just to kind of clarify that is the full doping section. There was nothing else in the press conference at all about doping. So that's it. They did change the subject pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, they've been writing it up in the South African media, though. I'm looking at one of the South African rugby magazines online, and they're saying that Matt Proudfoot has defended the reputation of South African rugby, which he didn't really do, did he? He kind of... He's like, look, I'm not going to talk about this, but if you look at our reputation, it's we're competitors. We're just competitors. So, is it a bit of a cop out for everybody, or is that how rugby treats this? That everybody at that level in rugby is going to go, you'd want to talk to the rugby union of whatever country that I'm employed by, because that's the stuff that they handle.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. That's kind of why I kind of framed the question like that in the first place. I didn't want this to come across to him that you're the bad guys here. This is the only country in the world that has issues. I actually would have been very interested to hear his overall take on whether or not it is hugely incentivised for young rugby players. We're talking schools rugby players here to take performance-enhancing drugs to make it in the game. We've got a more physical game than we've ever had in the past. So I think that case is true, and maybe he could have made that point. Like, I think the point he makes about testing working or not, I personally disagree with him, but I think he's fair enough in that opinion, and some people might agree with him on that opinion. But I do think it is a bit of a cop-out to not actually kind of respond to the question in a more solid way, to kind of step away from it, because what is actually happening here, and kind of it was just my second question there, is that the image of South Africa is now being affected, and you're certainly not doing anything to help that if you are sidestepping the question. Yeah, no, exactly. So it's the main story on SA Rugby Mag on their website at the minute. Proudfoot defends South African rugby image. It's not as if the most recent test wasn't close to the South African rugby team. Like, it's very close. It's really close. That's why this is now quite a big issue. For sure. Like, the hook here is South Africa. The hook here is a South African player failing a drugs test. The B sample coming back, and he still failed the drugs test. Like, you would have expected that if you'd asked specifically about that situation, he would have come back with an answer about the fact that this is still going down the courts. There could be an appeal. It'll go to the CAS, whatever. So there's no point really getting into that specific case. But make no bones about it, the reason why we're talking about this is because of that specific case in South Africa. And you got to say fair play to Alan Quinlivan in his article on Saturday as well, and bringing this back up right before the Rugby World Cup, because it is quite easy for us to sidestep this and just kind of get lost in this amazing city and this amazing country and enjoy the amazing rugby that is going to be on show over the next couple of weeks. But really, beneath it all, there is probably a big issue that has been turned a blind eye to for quite some time.
Yeah, well, look, it'll be interesting to see if that story disappears as soon as the actual stuff gets back out in the pitch, because frequently that's what happens. We get into tournament mode and it just slips off the news agenda unless somebody else tests positive. But sure, we know no one's ever going to test positive at a World Cup because that just never happens. The Irish press conference today, what was the story with that?
So you had Rhys Ruddock and Kieran Ruddock up for media today, which is really interesting, actually. There was a lot of good colour there. They spoke about their relationship with their father, how important he was in their upbringing, about having a Welsh accent and being accepted by people in Ireland, and the sort of brotherly nature that they now have within the Ireland camp. So Kieran, obviously, for anybody who would have missed it, last November was brought in as part of the SNC team, working with Jason McGahan and Irish Rugby, and that's where he wants to stay. He said during the press conference that he wants to focus on that area of things in his rugby career from now on. He did mention he would like to get back on the pitch in some shape or form, probably with club rugby before his career is out. But it was a really entertaining press conference, and the full thing is available up on Off the Ball's YouTube page.
Okay, I didn't realise that. How close is the chat that Rhys might start? Is he matchday squads? Like, where is he in the pecking order in the power rankings at the minute?
The power rankings around that, I think did we reach consensus last week when we were doing this, that it was going to be Standard, that it was going to be Van der Fleer, and that it was going to be O'Mahony? If you want to make any sort of deviation around that, it's Jack Honan who is a deviation rather than Rhys Ruddock. But he is certainly fifth man up. If we're doing a power ranking of back row forwards at the moment, Rhys Ruddock is number 5 here, right?
Tyke Byrne? I don't know.
Tyke Burns. Yeah, that's second row, back row. Potentially, but Rhys Ruddock for sure. When it becomes the midweek games, Rhys Ruddock is almost number 1. He is a banker to captain Ireland on those occasions, let alone start those games. So a lot of people have said that's what he's there for, but you'd imagine that his talents go a little bit beyond just captaining Ireland to play Samoa and Russia, that he could be in with a shout of making the matchday squad. In terms of other news then, today, obviously Rob Kearney and his fitness was a story that emerged overnight regarding his availability for this weekend's game against Scotland in Yokohama. The Irish press officer, David O'Sheahan, kind of played down those rumours this morning, or those reports, I should say, this morning, that he will be assessed today. It's a day off. Ireland are in training today, and tomorrow they look to try and get him back into training. So he is still a live option for the weekend, but fitness pending. Robbie Henshaw, it's looking like it's 90% certain at this point he will not be available this week. But it was specifically mentioned that they will be targeting Japan for him to make a return for, which is pretty interesting if the severity of the hamstring injury was to be believed from the initial report. You've got Joey Carberry, who's back to full training at this point as well, and Keith Earls was running fully yesterday. So outside of the Rob Kearney news, I think there's probably a silver lining to all the other injury clouds. Okay, so you expect Keith Earls to be available for selection this weekend, for Joey Carberry to be available for selection this weekend if needs be? Yeah, but as Rory O'Connor was saying on Monday Night Rugby last night, there's a difference between that and then actually having played a lot of test minutes over the last couple of weeks, which is something that Keith Earls hasn't really got under his belt. You probably start a fully fit Keith Earls regardless of the amount of test minutes he's got. And if Joe Schmidt feels that he's got a full week of training, like he was training yesterday, and we all know that Schmidt likes his players to have a full week. If you're getting back on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, it's not good enough for a Schmidt team. But Earls getting back on a Monday, that could be key for him to start this weekend in Yokohama. Do you know that Joey Carberry start training this week, earlier in the week? He was, yes. He was back to training yesterday as well. So Earls and Carberry both started this week off. So in terms of getting a full week from Monday through to Saturday in this situation, both Keith Earls and Joey Carberry are on track to give a full account of themselves going into the weekend. So I would not be surprised whatsoever to see Joey Carberry on the bench this weekend. All right. Last point is about sumo. You went to see some sumo at the weekend. Yeah, shout out to buysumotickets.com who sorted me out with a free ticket on Sunday night. I got off the train on the first day I arrived in Tokyo, got lost about 3 different places, and just on buysumotickets.com in an Ireland jersey, despite that came to me with a free ticket for the beautiful sport that you're seeing on screen right now. This is the autumn tournament. It takes place in the Ryogoku Kokugikan. And anybody who's actually well-versed in Japanese will tell me I've absolutely slaughtered that pronunciation, but it's a beautiful traditional setting for sport. It is a beautiful traditional sport itself, and it's pretty easy to see what's going on. You don't need to watch too many sumo bouts to know exactly the rules of sumo. Hit each other hard, and you try to knock the opposition outside of the ring. We saw on screen there a kind of David versus Goliath bout, which is my particular favourite, my highlight from the night. But David unfortunately lost on that occasion.
Yeah, that's not how it's supposed to work. You know, he's supposed to take out a slingshot. Right, really good stuff, Owen. Here's the Roscommon man who represented Ireland at World Championship level as a sumo wrestler and went on to become the Joe Rogan, it says here, of sumo broadcasting. Owen has been speaking to John Gunning. Have a look.
I'm delighted to say I'm here in Tokyo with the man that is John Gunning. John, how are you?
I'm grand, yeah. I'm not too bad. Thanks, Owen. Good to be here with you.
I think it's fair to say that most of our audience back home might not know who you are, but if I asked many English-speaking people around the city who you are, they might know who you are.
Yeah, I'd say I'm a big deal. Kind of a big deal, you know. Take that Ron Burgundy line. Yeah, I've been out here 20 years. I'm the main sumo commentator, or I'm one of the main sumo commentators on Japanese national television. I have an column, weekly column that becomes daily sumo tournaments, and yeah, I'm kind of one of the faces of sumo in Japan.
We'll get into that in just a moment because your media career is very interesting, but ultimately you're a guy from Roscommon who comes out to Japan and becomes a sumo wrestler.
From sheep stealer to sumo wrestler, right? Yeah, it's I have a friend of mine, Paul Burns, who is big up in sport in RTE, you know, and he said it'd be like somebody from deep dark Kyoto coming and ended up like being head of the GA, you know. So it's an unusual path, and something that if you'd said to me, you know, 20 years ago, that's what I was going to end up doing, I would have laughed at you. I wouldn't even known who sumo wrestlers were back then. But yeah, I came out to Japan, came on a holiday first, absolutely loved it. Didn't want to leave. Was with Paul that I mentioned there and a couple others. That was in the year 2000. 8 months later, I'd sold everything in Ireland, packed up all my stuff and just came out and moved without a word of Japanese. Spent 3 years in Osaka working there, then moved up to Tokyo, and I had a kind of background in sports media, a little bit anyway, you know, and just gradually, when I came out I was slim and I was playing soccer, you know, I was 60 kilos. Couldn't run anymore once I got a bit older. You know, I got sick of chasing 16-year-olds around hot summer 40-degree fields, you know. So I hurt my knee, couldn't run. Decided I'd take up an easier sport, which was sumo, and ended up breaking like nearly every bone in my body then over the next 10 years. And you know, but it's yeah. I moved into the sumo area and I became more involved in the sport on an amateur level and then closer to the professional people and then in the media side of it.
Yeah, so how does that happen? Do you look around for a game to play that isn't as taxing in certain areas and you kind of look to get involved in the culture and then suddenly you start to take it seriously, or how does this happen?
I think when I came out first, there wasn't the internet. Broadband was just starting up in Japan at that time, you know, like 20 years ago. But the only thing I could understand on television was sumo. Right. You know, and television was the main media for me at that time, you know, so it's down or out, it's very simple. And when you watch it on television, then you see the athleticism of the people, and that's really shocking because like at most people, when I came out first, I had the image of, you know, fat cuddly pandas belly bouncing each other, you know, in a gentle way out of the ring. And what it is it's American football linemen, you know, crashing into each other with huge power. And so that was fascinating. And then I went to a tournament, at a professional tournament, and I saw that and I was hooked immediately. You know, once you're there with the sights and the sounds and the smells and everything, it really gets its hooks into you. And once I gave up the soccer, I was looking for something else to do. And I was a big fan of sumo at that stage. And, you know, I've never had any sense really. So I was like, you know, I think I'll give that a go. So I contacted a local amateur club that was teaching mostly kids, but also had like some adult members. And went along, watched the practice and thought, I could do that. And it's just pushing people, you know. And they said, sure, come back next week and give it a go. And I spent 4 months and I didn't win a single fight that first 4 months. I just got pummeled to bits. How
bad is the pummeling?
It's bad.
Okay.
I mean, it's bad. I mean, they were easy enough on me at the start, and you know, they used to put me up against. I got put up against the guy. I remember the first fight, and I looked at him. And I thought he was probably like college level or something like that. And it's like a bit bigger than me, a bit heavier than me. And I was like, so he's a college student, is it? I was like, no, he's only 12.
Wow.
You know, it's just gigantic guy, and 12, 13-year-olds, guys who were just like junior high school, they just had more skills than I could deal with at the beginning. Like I just, you have the small quick guys and you go in and they'd be gone, be around the back of you, and the big guys, they would just blow you out of the ring, so without that experience and without that background in it, it took me 4 months before I could win a single fight.
And what are those younger guys doing? Like, what is the skill? Because as you say, people like me look at sumo and it's like, the bigger you are, the more powerful you are, the better you are, but there's obviously a huge amount of technique.
In amateur sumo, there are weight classes at the international level, so it doesn't apply so much, but in professional sumo, which you only can join from age 15 onwards, there are 3 things, really. There's size, technique, and physique. Physique, technique, and heart. That's the main thing, I think, really. So, what's that thing you say? It's not the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight in the dog. Like, that really applies in sumo. You can get away with various body shapes and sizes. I often compare it to like Street Fighter, or one of those video games. You've got all different kinds of characters, and each one has their own strengths and weaknesses. So if you can play up to it, like if you're small, like there's a guy in the top division now, and he is smaller than either of us.
Right.
He's a couple of he's probably only. I think he's like 176 centimeters tall, and he only weighs like 80, 90 kilos, but his skill level is off the charts.
Wow.
Eno is his name, and he's a superstar.
Because I was going to ask, obviously tongue-in-cheek, how much weight would I have to put on to ever last in the ring? But you're telling me that there is a chance.
Yeah, there's a chance, yeah. There might be a few other obstacles between you and sumo stardom, but, never lose hope. I would say probably in the top division, the average weight is about 160 kilos now. But the ideal size is probably something like 189, 90 centimeters and about 150, 160 kilos. I mean, that's the size of, there's a variance, obviously. And there are guys who are successful at different sizes and shapes. But it's, just getting back a little bit, you asked me, like, what was the pummeling like? It's incredibly physical as a sport. So it's like American football, and you're banging your heads together, impact after impact, and you're not wearing any protective gear, and you are on a hard surface, and it's full bore. Like, there's no sparring in sumo. When we fight in practice, it's the same as fighting in a ring. So there's slaps to the face, there's thrust to the throat, and I broke my humerus lengthways, I fractured my skull, broke teeth, lost feeling in this arm for 4 months. Couldn't move it actually for a year and a half, basically. So it's incredibly violent as a sport, and then the professional side of it, it's incredibly violent as a lifestyle. There's hazing. It's essentially a 17th, an 18th century activity that hasn't changed since the mid 1700s. So everything, emotionally taxing, physically taxing, mentally taxing, and there's no escape from it. So it's an extremely tough sport.
Yeah.
I wouldn't particularly recommend that you take it up, even if you could. Usually when I get guys who come from abroad who want to join sumo, the first thing I do is spend 6 months trying to dissuade them, because it's not what people imagine. It's one of the hardest things you can possibly do.
Talk to us about that hazing culture in sumo, because it is something that I've read. They're having a few bullying scandals in stables around the city or around the country. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a peculiar mindset in sumo. First of all, there's a lot of machismo in the sport, So guys break a finger, the coach says, tape it up and keep going. I know a guy who tore an ACL and tore half of the other ACL. He just got a brace and kept fighting.
Okay.
So no surgery, just kept fighting. And you see that a lot. When I told you I broke my arm, right? So it was in a fight, and this bone, the humerus, broke lengthways into 3. And it tore all the nerves in the upper arm. So for 4 months, I had no ability to move this arm, and it was just tied to my body. I lost sight and hearing because I hit my head so hard in the ring when the arm broke. So in the hospital, I couldn't see and hear for for a few minutes, and face was black and blue, and I had to sleep on the couch for the first month because I couldn't lie down where the arm was. And after a week or 2 out, I went into the club and I told him, here, I'm still alive and I'll be back next year, and probably be a year and a half before everything gets, back to normal, or back to as normal as it can be. And the coach looked at me and he said, you're not going to train. And I was wearing a sling. I had my head, covered in bandages and everything. And I said, how can I train? And he's like, there's nothing wrong with your legs, is there? Your legs are fine. Do some, leg stumps and squats, So I did. you know. I just did some squats there, like, you know, barely every movement was agony, you know. So that's just the normal part of sumo. Like, that's just the mentality they have. And so you get guys that come in and say, if they come from abroad, and the stablemate says to them, you know, give me water in Japanese. And of course they don't speak a word of Japanese, and they go, what? And they get punched in the face. So the next day they know what water means. Like, you know, you'll never forget it. That's one reason that they learn Japanese so quickly. But I mean, you get guys who are, I don't know if I can swear on this or not, you know. You get guys who are assholes, you know, because they're there in every sport and in every walk of life, you know. You get all kinds of people in sumo the same as you do in anywhere else. But even the guys who are solid, sound people, they still subscribe to this ultra macho mentality. So
it changes people almost.
It does change people. It changes you physically and it changes you mentally, but it's in the sumo world it's really top down and it's really top heavy. So the stable master is the same as a feudal lord. So most stables don't allow the guys who join at first to use the internet or have phones or even go out to the store on their own. You have no rights. You don't get a salary. 98% of all people who join sumo never get a salary. Right. It's only the top 5% who ever make it even to the salaried ranks at all. And you have no rights until you make the top 2 divisions out of 6 divisions. So in those lower 4 divisions, you're essentially an indentured servant. You can quit at any time, but once you quit, you can never come back. So sumo's a one-time, one-chance thing. And the only way you can progress in sumo is by beating the people around you. So it's a zero-sum game. So physicality is important and skill is important, but when I was talking about the mental part of it, I'm not just talking about in the ring, I'm talking about outside the ring. The ability to go into a stable where everyone else is trying to claw to the top of the ladder as well. And even though you're their stablemate, there's also that rivalry there. So can you take a beating? Can you take the harassment? Can you take the, you know, the physical stuff? Can you stand your ground?
Yeah.
You know, and like, there is a problem with it and it goes too far. And if you have a stable master who's not really on top of things, you will get a Lord of the Flies type environment where it just goes out of control completely. But even in the places where it's not like that, it's hard. It's tough. And if you are not mentally able to stand it, you'll quit. And that's what most people do.
You obviously were mentally able to stand it for a while. At what point do you realise that actually this is not for me in the long term? I guess it's the same for, as you say, 98% of people.
Well, you got to make. So I was not a professional.
Sure.
We have to make the distinction there. So what I did was amateur sumo, because you have to join professional sumo by the time you're 22. And if you're a foreigner coming from abroad, that essentially drops to about 17. I mean, once you're over 17, they really don't want you unless you've had huge success in amateur tournaments. So sumo, there are 2 separate branches of sumo. One is amateur sumo, which is purely a sport, which is what I did. And that has world championships. I represented Ireland in 3 world championships. It has tournaments like you go and you train at the weekends, and then, you know, you're a college student or your work or whatever you do. That's no different from any other sport. And then there is professional sumo, which is only in Japan, and that is a lifestyle. You join that and it's like joining the military or joining a monastic order, and you're, you know, fighting monks type of thing. And so there's a little bit of overlap in Japan. So I trained with pros, and, you know, I introduced guys into pros, and there is that overlap, as I said. But for me, I was never in that pro world. I mean, if I'd been young enough when I came to Japan, I definitely would have joined it. I would have been stupid enough to do it, you know?
How far do you think you would have gotten?
Oh, not far at all. I mean, I had some success as an amateur against like some ex-pros and something like that. But, you know, even in my club, kids that were like 15, 16 and went on to the pro level, like never did anything, you know, that I had a tough time dealing with. I just wasn't big enough. And I didn't have the skill or the background, you know. I mean, the guys like Eno that I talked about earlier, they're outrageously talented and have been doing it since they were 4 years of age, you know. So you can see my results in the World Championship that I definitely wouldn't have made it very far.
So that's John Gunning, Roscommon's sumo superstar. That's only half of the interview. The other half is available to watch on offthewall.com/YouTube, where you can get it in the highlights podcast stream. The second half is how he goes on to become a media star and some of the perils of covering a Japanese sport in Japan, and a bit about the Rugby World Cup too. That was an interesting career path.
Yeah, very, very good interview as well. You know, I suppose the ignorant view looking in at sumo, you kind of just go,
big lads.
two big lads running into each other, but I suppose there is a lot more skill involved in it, and it's a very, very tough.
The violence.
Sport.
I hadn't thought of it, but the violence and the breaking stuff.
Yeah, well, I think the zero-sum thing stood out to me when, you know, like even you see boxing gyms and people sparring together, like it's everyone looking to climb to the top. That makes it a much more, you know, violent and physically demanding sport.
Yeah, it's definitely kill or be killed. Right, a reminder, the Boyle Sports World Grand Prix of Darts returns to City West, the convention centre, from the 6th to the 12th of October. All this week on OTB AM, with thanks to the PDC, we're giving you the chance to win the ultimate darting experience. You and a guest will win 2 VIP tickets to the Boyle Sports World Grand Prix final, plus a night stay at the City West Hotel, including breakfast on Saturday the 12th of October. We're also giving away a pair of tickets to Friday's semi-finals each morning this week. There are 2 steps to enter the competition. Just share the stream wherever you're watching it. So if it's OTB AM on Twitter or Periscope or YouTube, you just share that stream on any of the other social channels and tell us who won the 2018 World Grand Prix of Darts. You're a Liverpool fan. Were you an Emile Heskey fan?
I was, yeah. More probably Michael Owen than Heskey, but the two together were brilliant to watch for a few years.
For a little period of time there, yeah. Champions League is obviously back tonight. Premier League superstar Emile Heskey is part of the Air team. He stopped by OTB Towers to talk Liverpool and much more. Have a look. Emile Heskey is in Dublin today to help launch a new season of action on the Air Sport Pack, which includes every game in the UEFA Champions League and UEFA Europa League, live on Virgin Media Sport, which is now part of the Air Sport Pack. Air Sport, obviously the home of the Rugby World Cup in Ireland as well. Emile, you're very welcome. How's it going?
Thank you. I'm very good. Thank you very much.
So I'm not going to lie to you. We tapped up Kevin Kilbane for some good stories about about you before when we knew you were coming in, and actually it was all good stuff. You'll be glad to hear.
He's a good lad. So it was great for me when we was at Wigan together. So
he said there was one famous occasion where a centre back gets injured and you end up going back centre back and absolutely dominating at centre back.
Yeah, it was Sheffield United last game of the season. We had to win to stay up. Pressure's on us. We were winning the game. Last 5-10 minutes, I think, you know, the pressure and everything. Everyone's going down with cramp and everything. I just remember going back and I was thinking, no, I've got to get back in there. And all I thought was head it and kick it. Well, like to be fair, any defender should really. Just head it and kick it. So every ball that come in, it just seemed to come on my head it. And every ball that dropped, just kick it. And it was brilliant, to be fair. We stayed up and it was weird because Paul Jewell resigned.
Straight away?
Yeah. But you could see the pressure. You could see the pressure on it taking its toll on him, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
It doesn't sound like you have a great store in the great art of defending. You're like, head it, kick it, that's a defender's job. That's it.
That is really, it's defending. Don't get me wrong, at the end of the day, when it comes to the actual playing out of it, that's the next step.
Yeah.
But let's get the fundamentals right first, which is head it, kick it, clear it.
Fair enough. You've got a book out at the minute where it's called Eoin Heskey Scored.
Mm-hmm.
What's with the?
Well, the little thing is the 5-1 against Germany, and then there's a song out that Eoin Heskey scored. So I thought, why not use that?
Yeah,
why not?
So that's the greatest day in English football since the World Cup, right? We remember that day really well because we beat Holland 1-0 that day, and also secured a playoff for the World Cup. You guys qualified as well. So, and it's a week before September 11. It's like the whole world is happy and great, and everything is great, and then loads of stuff. Yeah. Did you get to celebrate that stuff in your career in a way that?
Not really. As well, the I think that was the weekend, and then the following Tuesday or whatever, we'd had another game. So really, you couldn't really take in the actual moment, but you really don't notice it properly until like even now. When I meet people in the street, like you saying, you know exactly where you was, and wherever I go, people and I'm talking young kids who would have been about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 at the time. They're telling me, "Yeah, I remember where I was doing this and I was doing that." It's like, wow, everyone remembers that game.
Yeah, and you've a central role in it, and it should be the start of a very warm embrace from the English football public because you know it's a key moment in English football history, and yet. Even Heskey Scored suggests that warm embrace doesn't really happen.
It doesn't. There's this notion that I didn't score enough goals, or you know, I'll give you a funny story. I met a guy in I can't remember where I was somewhere, and a fan come up and said, "Oh yeah, Heskey, how you doing?" Blah blah blah. I don't get called Emile, by the way. called Heskey.
Right.
Everywhere. Heskey, how you doing, bro? Yeah, not too bad. How you doing? Yeah, he was a great player. But he just didn't score enough. I scored over 100 in the Premier League. He went, oh, did you? I went, yeah. He goes, oh, I didn't know that. Well, I'm a rugby fan anyway. Oh. So you're coming up to me and say, but this is the notion that people will actually get if you don't really know football.
Yeah.
That I didn't score enough, and
so that must piss you off.
It doesn't really bother me. It happened, and it's happening. Even now, you talk about a lot of people talk about the stuff about Lukaku. We'll go, oh yeah, he's not good at this, he's not good at that, he's not good at this. Top scorer for Belgium, top scorer in most of these. He's one of the quickest, the youngest to get to 100 goals in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But we forget all this because they're saying that he can't control the ball. Well, he's good at controlling the ball, but he just doesn't. He's not a vision of what you think he should be.
Yeah.
And people forget about the rest of the good stuff that he does.
So, when that's happening and you're playing, does this have an impact on your
I had to stay focused. No, I had to stay focused on myself because at the end of the day, if I wasn't good enough, who would pick you, really? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I was picked by several. I found out it was 6 different managers. And I couldn't name them the other day with England.
Right.
And then I was near on first choice when I was at, especially the first couple of seasons at Liverpool. So yeah, I just had to take it on, and as well, your peers, your players that you're playing with, and even the opposition, they didn't really want to be playing up against Emile Heskey.
No, it's true, and so like that you know, your body of work, you score 100 goals. You're one of those on Sky Sports whenever there's the 100 club that they always have. Like you're one of those guys. So you know, you should be able to relax now, having had a great career, and go, oh, I had a great career.
I can still do that.
Yeah, okay.
But it's just there was that in there that says, oh, you know, he's not good enough. He's not done this. He's not done that. But look what I do.
Did you have those voices in your head at the time? Did that ever get through to you?
No, in a sense that I wouldn't allow it because I knew my worth and I knew what I was bringing to the table. So I never, and as well, I distanced myself from actually. Because now it's difficult because you have social media and it's always in your pocket and it's always there in front of you.
Yeah.
But back then it was newspapers. So if you take yourself away from that, I'll give you another story. We had we played in one of the European championships, and we, you know, the newspaper, the tabloids can be tough at times, and especially for England anyway. But one of the things that they used to do with the national team is have all the tabloids sprawled all over all over a table.
Why?
That's my thing as well.
That's idiotic.
Yeah, but this is as you go for breakfast, dinner, lunch, and dinner. You're like all this negativity, and it took for someone to say, no, we don't need newspapers. We can stay far away from that right now. We need to focus on what we want to do, and I just took myself away from all that. I didn't really read it, and people would come up to you, and they'd generally be friends. Oh, did you see what he said? No, because I don't care.
Yeah, which manager eventually realises we've got to get rid of this, or was it the players that go to a manager and say?
I think it was Sven who came in, and then that didn't bother him. So he didn't see why you needed newspapers.
Yeah.
Who needed them?
That didn't make a lot of sense. So, were there managers along the way who helped you with that kind of stuff and gave you the confidence to be the footballer?
Martin O'Neill was great. Martin O'Neill was fantastic. I'll say two managers that I had that were brilliant for me. Martin O'Neill, when I first came in, he's a manager that doesn't give you too much information. If you give a young lad information,
we know that
it's information overload.
Yeah,
which wasn't good for.
So you're 17 when you break into the team?
17, 18. I was 18 when he came, but I was 17 when I first broke into it. So at that stage, he would tell me, just get the balls quick, strong, but just get the ball, turn and run, take people on and create chances. That's it. That's all I did. And it took me to a certain stage. Then when I went to Liverpool, I needed to learn about football then, don't you? You need to learn about different tactics. And I swear, we used to sit in, so imagine this being a meeting room, and you've gone from not having meetings at all, and just worrying about yourself and not worrying too much about the opposition, and then sitting in a meeting with a screen there, pitch black, and you sat at the back. I fell asleep in the first 2 to 3.
This is Houllier?
Yeah.
Has he got a pointer? And
yeah, you know, the red
flicker.
Yeah. And then, but then you actually understand what you're actually learning. You're learning more and more. We used to have on the football pitch. We had poles everywhere, and he'd go to that pole and say, "Where do you need to be?" So this is for 45 minutes or whatever.
Right.
And you're just moving around the pitch with no balls. You're just moving around the pitch for shape, and it's just poles everywhere, and you've got to know where this is the ball here.
And did everybody respond well to that, or was half the dressing room going, "Oh, come on, this is"?
I would say majority. I would say 90%.
Like that.
Yeah,
and that.
Because you're learning, and that was what football was all about. It was about learning, and I'd got to the point where I needed to, and I enjoyed it, and that's why I say them two helped me a lot.
You play again with Houllier at Villa, so I think Martin O'Neill signs you, and then O'Neill leaves and Houllier arrives, and just it's in the news at the moment because Stephen Ireland, who's a buddy of yours, has done an interview with The Athletic, and Houllier didn't work out for him that second time. He said that there's a line about Gerrard being off, I don't know if it's looking at the trees, looking at the flowers or whatever it was, but not looking at training, and he just wouldn't really give him an opportunity at Villa. So maybe by that stage, Houlier's career had changed and his drive had gone a bit? Possibly.
He had another heart problem there as well, which wouldn't have been great. I obviously play with Stevie, and Stevie's a really good friend of mine. I've just been speaking to him before. So he had a tough time in the sense that football, a lot of people say football goes off at how you train, and I would say you got to train the way you play, regardless of what I say next. It doesn't necessarily go like that at times, because if you look at the way Stevie trained, you'd have him in your team straight away. I don't think there's a better trainer than Stephen Ireland, but I don't know what it was. Why?
Clash of personality or something?
I don't know, because he wasn't a person that would be outspoken unless he went to the manager's office and gave him a what for in the office where we don't see.
Yeah.
But on the pitch, he wouldn't be one that would be mouthing off, and you'd be frustrated having him on the training pitch because he's ruining your sessions or anything like that. No.
Yeah.
He wouldn't say anything in the changing rooms that would pee you off, and you be a manager and say he's finished at my club. No.
He was a baller as well. He was a good player.
Oh, really good, really good. When you, like I said, if you were watching training, the physical work, as in the running stuff, and the actual ball playing, he'd be your first. But I don't know why there was something not there that managers didn't pick him.
He feels like he didn't fulfil his potential. It's not that he's angry about it or bitter about any of the stuff that happened. It's like a series of bad luck and some ill judgment on his part as well in that piece. I don't know if you read the full piece yet.
I haven't. I was texting him just then before I came in, and I said, "Where was it?" But he hasn't replied to me.
It's in The Athletic. I can show it to you after. There's no problems. And
open.
You really get.
Is it open?
Yeah, totally. You get to understand that when he's 18. He was a single parent on 86 quid a week from Man City. Man City gave him another contract when he's playing in the Premier League, still on 86 quid a week. A single parent running out of money. Mika Richards is buying nappies for him at the end of the month. Like, it sounds like a really horrific situation for any lone parent to be in, while at the same time having the pressure of being Man United's new or Man City's bright new thing. At the end of that, he says, I feel like I didn't quite fulfill my potential. Do you feel you fulfilled your potential?
Yes, I did. Looking back at what I wanted to achieve, the only thing I didn't achieve was winning a World Cup, which was, it's every kid's dream, isn't it? Lift that trophy, blah, blah, blah. But, I went to 2 World Cups. So I've won four League Cups, 1 FA Cup, 1 Super Cup, 2 Community Shields, UEFA Cup, gone to 2 World Cups, 2 Euros Championships. So yeah, I did. I would have liked to have won the World Cup, but when you've got the likes of France, who were there, that was their golden age, golden era, it was going to be difficult. So yeah, I feel I did.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts is back at the City West Convention Centre, Dublin, from the 6th to the 12th of October. See 32 of the biggest darting stars on the planet, including world number 1 Michael van Gerwen, former Grand Prix champion Darrell Gurney, plus fan favourite Peter Wright. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.ie and search darts. The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts at City West. Game on.
Rugby season is back and Lifestyle Sports is giving you the chance to win something very special.
The ultimate rugby year for you and 3 mates.
You could be headed to the Champions Cup final,
the Pro 14 final,
interprovincial games of your choice,
and get match day ready with kit bags full of jerseys,
new season training gear,
€400 in vouchers and more.
Check out lifestylesports.com.
Lifestyle Sports Rugby on Insta,
or buy any jersey in store or online for a chance to win.
Live rugby with Lifestyle Sports.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
Okay, last call. The Boyle Sports World Grand Prix of Darts returns to City West Convention Centre from the 6th to the 12th of October, all this week on OTB AM. With thanks to the PDC, we're giving you the chance to win the ultimate darting experience. So 2 VIP tickets to the Boyle Sports World Grand Prix final, plus a night stay at the City West Hotel, including breakfast on Saturday the 12th of October. We also have a pair of tickets to Friday's semi-final to give away every morning this week. Just share the OTB AM stream wherever you're watching or listening. Maybe you're listening on Go Loud. You can just tweet us that and you can tell us who won the 2018 World Grand Prix of Darts. Now, Phil Egan and Tom Malone are here. It's 9:15. Good morning, gents.
Morning.
We're a day late with this. We meant to do this yesterday, but we got a bit carried away with our All-Ireland final coverage. We did want to talk about the Curragh at the weekend, Tom.
Yeah.
Amazing scenes.
Obviously, day 2 of Longitude Irish Champions weekend, and it's the the kind of the culmination of the flat season in Ireland for all intents and purposes. 6 Group 1s over the course of 2 days, but really, it was all about one race and ultimately all about one man in the end, and that was the Pat Smullen charity race for cancer trials in Ireland. So they assembled 9 champion jockeys for it. It was originally meant to be 10 champion jockeys, but unfortunately with the news about Pat Smullen and his illness recurring, it was cut down to 9. Obviously all in aid of cancer trials, because he is suffering from pancreatic cancer himself at the moment. And it was one of the most emotional sporting occasions I've ever witnessed. It was quite incredible. So, over 10,000 people at the Kerry, which obviously a first since the redevelopment of that kind of level of attendance on what was a grim enough looking day, as you can see from the pictures. The 9 jockeys lined up: Tony McCoy, Ruby Walsh, Paul Carberry, Johnny Murtagh, Kieran Fallon, Richard Hughes, Ted Durkin, Joseph O'Brien and Charlie Swan. And it was such an incredible occasion. They even got Des Gall out of retirement as well to call it. And it was such amazing buy-in. And then ultimately, as was the case, 4,358 times previously in his career, AP McCoy came out on top. And the scenes afterwards were just incredible. I think we even have his flying dismount didn't really go to plan.
It looks fine there.
Looks fine there.
If I'm him, I'm like, nothing. That was absolutely perfect.
Yeah. And then you just see it here.
The landing.
I know, Frankie Torrey's nearly 50 years old and he does it all the time. But yeah, it just... but I mean...
Back and to the left.
Yeah, exactly. In fairness to McCoy, chatted to him after the race, and it was really all about Pat Smullen. I think at this point they've raised over €1.3 million in the weekend for charity. She camped in Almacktoom. There was a big ball on Saturday night, and he kind of rang up and he donated like £500,000 on the spot, to bolster the fund. These cups actually were on sale at all the races. There is equine artist Darren Birdie, so he commissioned this piece. It's all the riders, including Pat Smullen, just on cups. They're selling them for £10 on the day. All the proceeds went to the fund. So just a spectacular fundraising effort, and it's kind of like, the way racing came together on the day was just, it was pretty touching, to be honest.
The race was... They all found out what horses they were riding like the day before,
they found out it was actually a handicap in the end. So the horse Tony McCoy rode, they all rode to their actual handicap mark, so there couldn't be any. The only impediment was that like Tony McCoy had to ride a top weight because he's so big these days. He's a long way off his previous race in weights. But yeah, he was on the top weight and it was never in doubt really. He jumped from the stalls and made all, and it was actually brilliant because it got to the furlong pole and you had Tony McCoy, Ruby Walsh and Paul Carberry all come with a run, so it was almost like a Cheltenham style roar, and then McCoy came out on top, and then they paraded back down in front of the stands for everyone as well.
And who finished second? What was the...
Tony McCoy won, Ruby Walsh was second, Paul Carberry was third, and Johnny Murtagh finished fourth.
I'm not surprised that that the most competitive of them all...
The most competitive person on the planet. Yeah. And interviewed him after the race as well, and obviously he's it's an incredible outpouring. And then he talks about the race and his face just changes instantly, and it's like, no, listen, I always wanted to win this. So a brilliant occasion, obviously incredible funds raised, and it was quite brilliant. But I have to can't not mention a horse called Pinatubo, who won on the day as well. He's been overshadowed in all this, but he's probably the best 2-year-old since Frankel, and he made an incredible appearance as well in the Gosfins and the Bryan National Stakes. It really was all about the Pat Smullen charity.
When I left him late on Saturday night, Paul Carberry was still out with Kevin Kilban, so I'm not sure that Paul Carberry was taking this with all the seriousness that Tony McCoy was.
Yeah, that'll be standard operating procedure for Paul Carberry, too fair.
So you're going to say that would be standard Kevin Kilban?
He's not here to defend himself or to give us any more details. So
we'll start with the rugby news. Obviously, Ireland kick off the Rugby World Cup campaign on Sunday against Scotland, and Rob Kearney still in contention for that game. We're told that the Leinster fullback, who's been struggling with a calf problem, is expected to train with the squad tomorrow. Robbie Henshaw has already been ruled out of Sunday's match due to the hamstring injury he suffered in training over the weekend, and Keith Earls has yet to resume full training. I know that they had a down day today, but they're back training tomorrow. Champions League group stage kicks off tonight. Champions Liverpool among those in action. Jurgen Klopp side are away to Napoli, who beat Liverpool in Italy last season. They beat them 1-0 before Liverpool then had to beat Napoli in their final group game at Anfield to get into the last 16. They did that. That game remembered not only for Mo Salah's goal, but that save from Alisson from Milik right at the end, which if it had gone in, that would have been Liverpool out of the competition. But Liverpool obviously went on to win it. They've started the Premier League season in impressive fashion, 5 wins from 5. Klopp says the players are hungry for more success after lifting the European Cup for a 6th time in Madrid just 109 days ago.
After the celebrations, all the private things, it's so easy to carry on normal if you have the right character. If you go nuts and start taking drugs and drinking and driving different cars or whatever and leave your missus at home because you think now I'm the Champions League winner, then I can't help you. But we are not like this. We want to create more stories.
He's also got no issue with the weather in Liverpool either.
That's what he says publicly.
Yeah.
He can't say, come on. You all know it. Like, it's grim.
It is. He always gives out about the wind. He's done that pretty much since he arrived. He'll be asked about a game. He said, wind ruined the game. And particularly the way Anfield is now with the new stand. I think it was the Burnley game last season they played where they beat them 4-2.
Do they need 4 sides, all the same size?
They whips in between the gaps, is it?
Yeah, but they're looking to redevelop even more. But he just said, yes, the wind can ruin games. But it's going to be interesting to see what he does. Obviously, Firmino didn't start at the weekend. Origi did. That's only because Firmino was late back from international duty. Comes on, lights the place up.
Yeah, when he came on though, he was outstanding.
He was like somebody. He was like just that person that comes back to play five-a-side with his mates. He's the professional footballer. He's just practicing these tricks. He's like, this is what I can do. He's unbelievable.
Did you ever play five-a-side with Kev?
We played that indoor game.
Yeah.
But I think he was holding back that day.
I was going to say, I thought he was amazing compared to the one across the road.
No, this was the one in Abbottstown, remember?
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't play that one. I played the one across the road, and Jesus, he was taking it easy on us, but still kind of nutmegging everybody, and it's like, all right, all that stuff that we said about you when you were playing camp, I take it all back.
Yeah, it's just different game altogether when you see the pros doing it. But Firmino, you'd imagine, is going to come in. There's this talk that Joe Gomez is going to start at right back.
Right. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's what they did for the first leg at the new camp last season.
It worked out well, right?
It didn't work out very well. So, for all we talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold, what he doesn't have maybe defensively, it's what he brings you in attack that can actually change the way the opposition play against you. Because if Trent Alexander-Arnold plays, then Napoli think we've got to keep an eye on this guy. But if Joe Gomez is there, they're thinking he's not really going to get beyond the halfway line. He's not that kind of player. Obviously, defensively he's a lot sounder, but he actually, he hasn't been in the team. I don't really see the merits of doing it. I would start Trent Alexander-Arnold. Just play him for what he brings rather than what he doesn't bring.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine Jordan Henderson will come back in. Wouldn't be surprised if Milner comes in as well. And you've got Fabinho, Henderson and Milner. Oxlade-Chamberlain looked a bit erratic at times. He's still only just coming back and he might leave Wijnaldum out.
He's kind of constantly still only coming back though, isn't he?
There's going to be a point where you have to say, right, the cut-off is there. Like, you're now... You have enough time.
Yeah.
You got to.
It's probably around Christmas though, right?
Yeah,
that's fair enough.
Like you can see what he brings. He's got that explosive pace, and his shooting is pretty good. But he was a bit loose in possession at times the other day.
What are you watching tonight? Apart from that game, what else should people be watching?
I'm going to watch that game, but Dortmund Barcelona, that's tasty. Messi could be back. Yeah, I mean. This lad Ansu Fati doesn't look too bad. 16-year-old's first start on Saturday against Valencia, scores inside the second minute.
Right, not bad.
16-year-old, pretty impressive. Dortmund had a bit of a setback there a few weeks ago, but they hockeyed Leverkusen at the weekend. So that's
Messi had been well trumpeted through La Masia. Everybody knew that he was coming. Everybody was raving about this kid who was going to come. This guy, like we had Andy Mitten on 2 weeks ago, and he's like, look, I go to Barcelona 30 times a season. I had to look this guy up when he came off the bench the first time. Why do we not hear
against Osasuna? And people were going, who's this lad Ansu Fati?
Yeah, why was there no drumbeat of like, oh, this is the next world superstar?
Yeah, well, I doubt now. Look, maybe in 20 years we can have this conversation, but I don't think Ansu Fati is going to be as good as Leo Messi, and maybe
it's not a bold prediction, to be fair.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm playing it safe there, but
he might be like the fourth best footballer of all time.
He could turn out to be unbelievable, but if you're 16 and if you're 16 and you're getting into the Barcelona first team,
so he's in the Champions League squad and all that as well.
Yeah. So it's, but I don't know. I don't know why he hasn't. Like, we're only starting to see the articles on him now. Like, who is Ansu Fati? I know Sid Lowe did a piece in The Guardian about him, like that he's arrived. So it'll be interesting to see if he starts tonight. But that's a game to watch. Chelsea are in action as well against Valencia. Valencia lost 5-2 to Barca at the weekend. The same day Chelsea were winning 5-2 against Wolves, and obviously Chelsea won the Europa League last season, but they did finish in the top four. Frank Lampard, this competition means a lot to him. He was the captain the night that they won the Champions League in 2012 when they beat Bayern Munich, because John Terry obviously was suspended. He was still there in full kit, but he had to give Frank Lampard the captain's armband that night. So Lampard says he's excited to be the main man in charge tonight.
There's something about nights at Stamford Bridge. There's something about the Champions League music. There's memories that I have and we have here as Chelsea people. And I want to experience it on this side of the fence. So I'll be proud to take the team out, but of course, very aware that what matters is results. What matters is starting the group well.
All those games, by the way, kick off at 8 o'clock.
Give me some wild predictions. Who's going to win the competition?
I think it's going to be a Premier League team, or I think Barcelona will be there and thereabouts again. But they keep getting there, but they just can't. They can't get over the line. Like, they were spooked. I wonder how damaging that defeat to Liverpool last season. So you're looking at Liverpool, Man City, as the two Premier League teams. Probably depends on how things are going in the Premier League at the time of the last 16 quarterfinals.
Man City have obviously decided they're not interested in the league this year.
After
they've lost one game. Sure. I mean,
they're still 4-6.
They lost 4 last season. But I think then, like, Atletico and Juventus are playing tomorrow night, which is a tasty one as well. One of those teams has to be in with a shout as well.
Maybe like your token solidly defensive team.
Well, Chiellini's going to be out for a while, but they've got
Spurs. How far do Spurs go?
Last season was a flash in the pan.
Right,
it's not going to happen again. But
dismissed. Chelsea quarterfinals.
I don't know.
Do they have enough depth in the squad?
No. Out of the group.
I don't know.
Right. Okay. So Chelsea not out of the group. Spurs out of the group.
Spurs probably out of the group. Yeah. Right. But they'll do it if they do get out of the group. They'll do it the very hard way.
Okay. We're nearly out of time.
Okay. I'll just let you know about Bohemians and Shamrock Rovers. That is going to be the FAI Cup semi-final meeting that a lot of people predicted, and it was no disrespect to Crumlin United, but Bohs had to take care of business last night. They did. They beat Crumlin United 2-0 at Richmond Park. Andre Wright and Andy Lyons with the goals. So that Bohs and Rovers game, Dalymount Park, Friday week. No doubt it'll be a sellout. Galway United beat Limerick 3-2 in the SSE Airtricity First Division last night. 0-0 between Aston Villa and West Ham in the Premier League. 95 minutes of my life I won't get back. Arthur Masuaku was sent off for Villa in the second half. Watch out for the news of Katie Taylor's next opponent later today, because we know she's going to headline the Manchester Arena on the 2nd of November. It's expected it'll be confirmed that it'll be WBO light welterweight champion Christina Linardatu, which means Taylor could be a 2-weight world champion.
That's the day Ireland win the World Cup, isn't it?
2nd of November, absolutely it is, yeah. It's going to be an unbelievable weekend.
What a weekend.
And Antrim featherweight Kurt Walker, who's the Irish team captain, takes on Canada's Robin Basran in the last 16 of the World Elite Championships in Russia. About 3:15 that fight is due to start at.
Phil, Tom, thanks lads. At 9:30 this morning, we've been giving away 2 VIP tickets to the Boyle Sports World Grand Prix final, plus a night stay at City West Hotel, including breakfast on September the 12th of October. Our daily prize winner, obviously, is getting tickets to the semi-finals. The Boyle Sports World Grand Prix of Darts returns to City West Convention Centre from the 6th to the 12th of October. Tickets are available on Ticketmaster. Our daily winner is Eric Byrne, who correctly answered the 2018 World Grand Prix of Darts, was won by Michael Van Gerwen. We're back on air and online from 7 o'clock tonight. OTBAM is live from 7:30 tomorrow. Our Rugby World Cup show is launching later on this week. Off the Wall Sports Radio is live all day today. Go to offthewall.com/radio. You can also download the Go Loud app, which is the best place to get it. You can watch the show back on offthewall.com on YouTube. You can subscribe to the OTB channel for all our best stuff. And we're also up as a podcast every morning. Search OTB AM. Good luck.